Grad Show was a place where you used to go and see projects that address problems related to.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Tech Times exclusive. Today, we'll be discussing the Global Grad Show with Director Tadeu Baldani. The Global Grad Show is a program for social impact innovation coming from university students from all over the world. Tad, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this is probably one of my favorite things to discuss. But if you could, we could start out with just a background on the Global Grad Show.
Yeah, so the initiative was designed and created 7 years ago to help university students who are developing solutions for social and environmental problems to take their ideas forward. So what we do is, as you said, at a global scale, today in over 70 countries, we do this yearly exercise of engaging with students and professors, trying to identify what are lines of research and projects that address problems related to social, environmental, and development problems. And what we offer them is visibility. I think that some of the problems that are part of Global Grad Show, they are not known by the majority of people. So we show problems and solutions, and we also help them to grow through a startup program. So in a nutshell, we work with a group of very smart people who are trying to address very complex problems. So it is it is something that gives us a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I've seen that this year there were roughly 2,600 entries, and 150 of those entries were selected. So could you give us a little insight as to what criteria is needed to make selection?
Yes, so the basic criteria is the idea has to come from a university background. We do have a lot of PhDs, we do have a lot of masters and some undergrads, but that is the common denominator. And it has to be addressing something that is, the solution has to have a innovation component. So it has to be something new. It has to have a technology component. And here, very important to say that we like low tech and high tech. So some people are using the highest form of artificial intelligence. Some people are using a low cost way of recycling. So yes, it has to be innovation, it has to have technology, and it has to be addressing something that is relevant to the community. So the problem has to be sizable as well.
Oh, I see. So how much importance does the Global Grad Show put on addressing the human impacts on our climate without necessarily doing it for capitalistic reasons, or to say look what we are doing type thing, but to really do it for the right reason?
Yeah, it is by design. Academic innovation tends to be agenda free. So this is what is so nice about, one of the things that are so nice about Global Grad Show is that we know that when we are screening applications and looking at innovations, they come from a place of sheer drive towards impact. And quite often they don't have yet the business that comes with it. So we do work within a group of people and ideas whose primary objective is to create something that is impactful, sort of regardless of its sustainability, its commercial sustainability. However, this is also a gap that we're closing with the program. Everyone who wants to take those ideas and find ways to deploy that to communities and the planet, they have the opportunity to do so. But the short answer to your question is they come from a place of ingenuity applied to impact. There is no criteria at Global Grad Show's selection related to how commercially or economically viable they are. It's about how much impact they can create.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. So, yeah, speaking of this entrepreneurship, this innovation aspect that is really focused on making an impact. I understand Global Grad Show has a specific program for these innovators and these students. Could you tell us a little more about that, please?
Yeah, so what happened is we realized after 4 years of running Global Grad Show that showcasing and bringing awareness and promoting these ideas had to be complemented by a startup program. The reason is they live and they are part of such a nascent stage of the development that without a little nudge, without a little push, most of the times they don't become a reality. So in a way, from the beginning, Grad Show was a place where you used to go and see all the amazing innovations and hope that many of them would become a reality. And we know that they didn't, because the right incentives sometimes are not in place. So what the entrepreneurship program does is to close the gap between the academic drive to create impact and the business thinking universe. So the people that are part of Global Grad Show, they are extremely smart, so they don't need any extra help in being smart. Mm-hmm. They just need the frameworks for business thinking, marketing strategies, some sort of technology protection and development frameworks. And with that, they become equipped to receive investments. And that is the full cycle of the program, actually, is taking them from quite often a thesis, a academic thesis, to a investment bank. Of course, that the underlying idea of everything you do here is to support ideas with impact, but the ones that want to become business, they can do that through the program. One of the elements that we consider extremely important, of course, is access to funding and capital to grow these ideas. We understand that without that, it is nearly impossible for an idea. Sometimes is quite expensive to be produced to come to fruition. So Global Grad Show has, through its partners, for example, ARM Holding, a system whereby the participants of the startup program, they can have access to funding opportunities. And what it does, Chris, is really close a small but extremely important gap. It is that gap between leaving campus and starting a company. And with this initial push, they can do amazing things on their own.
Right. That's incredible. Yeah, the way you said, like, to close that gap, there's definitely a gap, between, okay, great idea, development, exposure, but then that next step, no matter, how smart you may be, if you're not well versed in marketing and those type things, like, a lot of things can just, vanish. It just never comes to fruition. And I think it's great that the Global Grad Show is giving that, bridging that gap and giving that opportunity to these incredible students. But yeah, that was actually a great segue to my next question, which is, the importance of the ARM holding, because I understand they just, I guess renewed may be the right word to use here. Like they signed on to give funding once again. So, other than the entrepreneurship, I think our listeners like know how important is it to have such a strong backing from a third party?
It's paramount, because without the financial incentive or the financial means, many of these ideas they can't simply progress. Of course, that academic in the most developed parts of the world has sometimes access to grants and funding, but even then, it just takes you to a certain place and not necessarily the full cycle of the development of the company. So ARM's commitment, for example, is exactly the type of partnerships that are relevant to programs like ours, because you can tell by the 10 years commitment that was renewed after 2 years. They were, of course, very happy about the results. Renewing the commitment for another 8 years tells us that This is the type of partnerships that are necessary to accelerate impact innovation. People within the impact innovation field, they will tell us that it is sometimes patient capital. Therefore, it is an investment that you have to make, understanding that it will take some time for the idea to come to fruition. Because we're talking about technology sometimes, Chris, that requires so many medical approvals in so many countries that anything before 5 or 6 years time, it's impossible, right? With this technology, they need time to grow and to become a reality. So ARM's commitment does exactly that. It gives the participants the opportunity to have capital that is patient, and that helps them to grow at the time when they need it the most.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So you guys are based in Dubai, and I'm curious as to what benefits does that location and that area of the world really give to an initiative like Global Grad Show?
Yes, 100%. I think that our program, it is an international program, but of course its home is Dubai. And it's fair to say that the progress that Global Grad Show has had over the past 7 years reflects the support that we had from the public and private stakeholders in the city. The program is organically growing, but of course that with the incentives that we have always had and the support that we have had from the Dubai public and private industry and business fabric, we have been able to grow. And also, I think the same way that capital has to be aligned with the vision of the entrepreneurs. So in terms of timeline, these things, they have to be aligned. The vision of a program like Global Grad Show has to be aligned with the vision of the place from which we operate. And I think Dubai has proven over the past years that it is a pro-business, pro-innovation, and pro-overlap between different disciplines and cultures. So it is a place where we see the program growing from and benefiting from the support we have here.
Well, that's so good to hear. Yeah. So I was looking over some of the more I don't know, more exciting, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word to use. I'm sure all these projects are very exciting, but from a personal standpoint and thinking about, climate and all of those things, there was a few projects that really jumped out at me. And, for example, the disappearing package, which is, just the completely dissolvable packaging, no plastic waste, fantastic thing. And also Bizu, which was a biodegradable cling film that's made from the waste of a Scottish gin distillery, or the runoff, I guess maybe is what that is. So when you encounter projects like this, do you feel that you are maybe propelling an eventual revolutionary product?
I think we have that for sure, but we also have projects that complement one another. I think it's fair to say that at Global Grad Show, you see innovation that make a step forward, maybe 2-3 steps forward towards impact. Some of them can make in one single jump, maybe 100 steps forward. And I think this is exactly what the ecosystem needs. We need some paddle jumps and we need some moonshots, right? And I think Global Grad Show is very aware that without the combination, it is impossible to achieve anything. So the examples that you gave are super relevant, because at the same time that we need to address current existing waste, we also need to find a way to eliminate some of the waste in the future. And the same way that climate has to be fought from a new materials perspective. So let's not produce any more construction materials that are damaging to the environment. We also need to make buildings more efficient in terms of energy consumption. So it is this combination, Chris, is more than necessary for the entire thing to work. We can't make change, create change just with the ones that create some incremental progress, and we can't make change just with the ones that are the moonshot ideas. We need both, and you see both of them at Global Grad Show.
Right. Yeah, like those two that I mentioned, the disappearing package and Bizu, I feel like those are very, I don't want to say obvious, but when you hear about these things, you say like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Like, why hadn't I thought of that or something? But then there's the other side of the spectrum where this innovation coming from these university students are things that most people, most average people, much like myself, would never consider. And what I'm speaking of is a seed bot, the robot that is placed in the desert that charges during the day and then travels around planting seeds at night. Like, I think that's an idea that I would have never thought of. And I think it's fantastic. So with that being said, over the years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of different projects, come and go. What are some of your favorites?
So I think, let me give examples that are very relevant for the issues on the table right now, right? Things that are very topical. So from a climate perspective, one of my favorites is a project by the Politecnico de Torino, so the Turin Polytechnic University. They developed a new material, so the project is called Spectrum, that it's thermochromic. So it reflects, it sounds simple, but it is actually the mechanics and the chemistry behind it, it's complicated. But what it does is it basically reflects heat during the day and absorbs heat during the night. Let me rephrase this, Chris, because I don't think I'm making justice to the explanation. So one of my favorite ideas is Spectrum, that is very relevant and is very topical for the discussions that are happening right now. It's a thermochromic new material that helps building to be 30–40% more energy efficient. So if you take that project and you apply at scale in a big city, what you could see in the future is a city temperature dropping by 1 to even 3 degrees. So in the global scale, you can imagine how much difference that can make, right? If every building is coated with this new material, which is being developed as we speak, we could be looking at lowering city temperatures. Then in terms of health, right? Health is probably more than ever at the forefront of all the discussions. We have ideas that are using artificial intelligence to diagnose organ failure, for example. So a PhD from Imperial College last year took part of the Global Grad Show initiative for COVID-19. And what he did is that he developed an algorithm that can detect organ failure 48 hours before doctors and any clinical method can do that today. So we're talking about saving lives, quite literally, and of course, making the entire public health system more efficient across the world. I think this year also some ideas, they are looking into new materials and they are looking into biomaterials, which I think is a very interesting connection, and it connects all the dots of the discussions that are happening right now. So what is our impact on the environment, but also how can we use existing materials and natural materials to protect us and protect the planet? So a lot of people are looking at how to use algae from a new materials perspective. So it is the full cycle of being a green solution, right? You grow algae that captures CO2, of course, and you use that to produce something else, to produce superfood, which is one of the projects featured in Global Grad Show this year. You use that to produce new materials for industry, for example. So biomaterials is becoming something super relevant for the discussions today.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like I said, I could talk about this all day. Like, this could definitely be, like even a series. I wouldn't mind doing this every day for a couple of weeks, and because this stuff is so interesting. But you were talking about the health system and everything, and I would like to ask your opinion on the impact that the last couple of years dealing with pandemic, the impact that has had on innovation.
I think that academia in general tends to be very aware of its environment, right? It is a place where innovation tends to be free thinking and responsive to what is happening in that community where the university campus is based. However, for the people that are studying now, the people who started their PhDs 2 years ago or their master's degrees last year, the world has become the scale of which they have to operate. So now we are confronted with a problem and a scenario that solutions, they have to be global from the get-go to have the impact that are necessary. And I think it has just heightened this natural drive from academia to produce something for the other, to produce something for the environment. It doesn't come from a selfish perspective. From everything we can see at the Global Grad Show, the solutions are truly looking to solve problems that are part of the community, part of the planet, and part of the other. So it's not centered in the individual, it's not centered in the university, it's centered on the planet today. And the awareness that the pandemic has brought to all the discussions has, of course, incentivized a lot of smart people to do research on those areas. So it is reassuring to understand that the growth of Grad Show is a reflection of the growth of the interest of smart people to find solutions for the planet.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, as the Grad Show, becomes more and more popular and begins to, really grow, it is a direct reflection of, people becoming more and more innovative and solving problems and planning for, I think a lot of these products and projects may be, maybe not benefit us personally, but future generations will really be able to take this technology, these ideas, and implement them in a much larger scale. And, so we are at the infant stage of a lot of these things when, the future, it makes, the future for my children and my children's children will be extremely brighter thanks to things like, the Global Grad Show and ARM Holding.
And I think, Chris, what is also nice is understanding that often we don't have a good understanding of the complexity of the problems and the ramifications of the problems. So through looking at thousands of applications every year, we get to know the implications of problems that we understand in areas that we are unaware of. So when you take something like mental health, for example, yes, I probably have a good understanding of how mental health affects my community and the people that I work with and my family and my peers. But without looking at this huge map of data coming from all the universities, it's very difficult to have an understanding of all the implications of mental health to children, to young adults, to parents, to people in completely different geographies. And it's not there is no silver bullet, right? All these specific problems that are part of a big umbrella problem, they need to be addressed by specific solutions. So having the bird's eye view of all these problems also helps us to understand the complexity. I think that sometimes the discussions, they tend to focus on big titles and solutions that can solve everything at once. What we see at the Global Grad Show is that there's problems like food security, for example. There are so many implications from education to, of course, agriculture, but also healthcare that pertain to the field of food security that they need a joint effort to be solved. So I think looking at all these applications and data from all these universities helps us to understand the complexity of the problems and how sometimes in a very silent and subtle way, people are working to solve them without us knowing, right? So it is sort of the best case scenario that problems get solved even before we become aware of the problems. And that's often what happens with academia, is that they are addressing something that doesn't get publicized or is not sufficient acknowledged in the media, but it's being solved without us knowing.
Yeah, that's very exciting. If you have any upcoming events or announcements you would like to inform our viewers of, please feel free to do so.
So we open the Global Grad Show International Showcase of new ideas from this year on November 8th. So depending on how people are watching this, the exhibition will be online and stays, of course, available throughout the year. We also have a physical display of ideas from the Middle East and North Africa, specifically taking place in Dubai between November 8th and 13th. So if people are here and around, of course, they are more than welcome to come and see and meet these students in person as part of Dubai Design Week in Dubai Design District between November 8th and 13th. And of course, do stay engaged with what we do through our social medias. For all the academics out there, stay in touch with us. We want to hear what you're doing and we want to work with you in this edition and the future ones.
All right, well, that's great. Well, Tad, thank you very much. And please feel free in the future to come back and we can definitely maybe dive in a little deeper in the next interview.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Chris.
All right, thank you. You just watched a Tech Times exclusive. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share the video. Be on the lookout for upcoming exclusives with the world's most innovative tech companies. See you next time.